So, all right. How about traveling by rail, Amtrak? Anybody ever, I've gone by Amtrak twice, no, 3 times. Once where I stayed overnight. So I had, what do they call that, the sleeper cars. And it was fully accessible too. It was great. It was a really nice sleeper car. Bathroom was good too. Plan ahead. Here's the thing. Not all Amtrak stations are fully accessible. There are ones that still have issues today. Even all these years after the ADA, and then once again, plan for additional boarding time. When I say level boarding, this is one of the things that is constantly a problem when it comes, like if you go into Union Station down in DC, they are going to have, I don't know how many, not only the Metro, you're going to have Amtrak, you're going to have there's like 4 different carriers at 4 different heights. I have not been on an Amtrak where it's not been the ramp from hell. And when I mean that, it's at like a 35-degree angle. And they're like, you need some help with that? And I always look at the person, it's like, seriously? Yes, I could use some help, please. You know? But be prepared for that. They're going to have to pull the ramp out, drag the ramp across. Even for persons with any kind of visual impairment or anything else like that, you need to be aware of level boarding issues. If you can't see, level boarding can be an issue with any kind of passenger trains. So, many different rail stations serve so many different kinds with all of the different ones at boarding. Amtrak almost every time is going to have a ramp. Now, they're also, when you get on the Amtrak, one of the things they're also going to want to do is lock down my chair. Whether I'm in it or not, do I have to stay in my wheelchair? If they're going to, if I paid for a seat, if they're going to tie down my wheelchair, and why do they want to tie down my wheelchair? They don't want it to be a projectile if we're going to slam on the train. So, but I don't have to sit in my chair. And a lot of times, I don't like to sit in my chair when I've been on Amtrak because, man, it wobbles and stuff, and you just feel like at any time I'm just going to go flying. So I'll be like, no, I want to sit in a seat. You may have to tie down my chair, true, and I granted, I don't want it to be a projectile either, but I want to transfer over into the seat here. Can I do that? Yes, I can. So Amtrak, be aware. Call ahead. Amtrak has got a great site that you can call. You can find out. They will tell you specifically if there's any accessibility issues. You can find out where the accessible entrances are at Amtrak stations. We're going to talk about metros and other ones. Oh, they're fun. Yeah. Finding the accessible entrance. It's always like a scavenger hunt. Let's go find the accessible entrance, you know. So, Amtrak. They have for persons who use a wheel mobility device following high platforms. So having gaps. Low-level platforms. Access from trains through different trains. So are you making sure that you have access to your sleeper car? Amtrak does have one problem, and that is a lot of the Amtrak trains have that really nice scenic viewing area that you got to go up the steps. Is that accessible for me? No. Is that violating the ADA? Absolutely. Does Amtrak get federal funding? Yes, they do. They get a lot of federal funding. So they're grappling with that right now. People are like, I want you to put in a power lift. Amtrak is saying that's going to create a safety issue on the train, having a power lift in there. I don't care. I want to be able to go up to the scenic viewing area that's got the little bubble over the top and all of that cool stuff. One time when I was on Amtrak, my wife got to go up there. Did I get to? No. She's like, it's really cool up there. Shut up. Yeah. So, yes.
Do they still only have one tie-down per car?
No, well, last one that I was on had flip-up seating. So it was one of the newer Amtrak trains. I accidentally was flying from DC out of Baltimore. That's when I booked online. And I did not realize my flight wasn't going out of Reagan, it was going out of Baltimore. So I had to get Amtrak, take Amtrak to Baltimore, and then fly out. But it was one of the newer trains. But they had like 3 different areas where the seats could be flipped up, and then almost like on the new buses that they have. So, but might they be limited? Good question to ask them. How many tie-down spots do you have? You know, what if you're traveling and you have 3 people?
Well, I think in Wisconsin, I helped a couple women trying to go to Dell for a conference, and they were told they were only 1 on each car, so they had to ride in separate cars so they couldn't sit together.
Oh, wow.
But
She was saying, yeah, everybody hear that? Yeah. That only one wheelchair seating area per car? No. Call and find out. Amtrak is pretty good about that. I've always found Amtrak, people I've known that have called Amtrak, they've been extremely helpful. I never talked about Greyhound though. Geez, traveling by bus. Should have threw in buses. You got to call ahead of time. Got to give them 48 hours notice to make sure that they have a lift-equipped bus. But even Greyhound now, ground transportation is required. And are they also required to have an accessible bathroom now? Yes. That was one of the things. First, it's like, okay, we'll put the lift on the bus. What about the bathroom? No. Here's one. What about an airplane? Yeah. If you are on a flight, if you are going to be flying an international flight with it's a Boeing 747 or larger, they are required to have 1 accessible bathroom. It's usually the one in the very back. Have you flown on a Boeing 747? You know how big that thing is? I know it takes approximately 45 minutes for everybody to get off a Boeing. I've timed it by the size of the airplane. How long is Kyle going to have to sit here before the aisle chair shows up? But then you go from your seat, they have a small little compact aisle chair that they'll bring out, and you transfer onto their aisle chair, and they put you in, and they'll wheel you in the bathroom. Then you got to be able to transfer onto the toilet so they can close the door. Because trust me, you can't close the door with that little aisle chair stuck in there. Ain't going to happen. So unless you want to be on public display, you need to be able to self-transfer. What if you need an attendant? Oh, can you get an attendant even in the accessible bathroom? That's what the airlines are getting hit on right now. I need a personal attendant to assist me in the bathroom. Good luck with that. Maybe you've been in one. Fitting 2 people in there is very tough. But think about it. High platform, low platform, bi-level trains, no ahead. So be aware of the different loading levels that we have with the different passenger trains. So they have some restrictions on the mobility devices and service animals as well. Service animals are animals that are trained to perform a specific task for the benefit of a person with a disability, yada, yada. They have their own definition as well. Be aware. So many different hotels, motels. What is your policy when it comes to service animals and emotional support animals? Be aware. Are they supposed to be uniform? Are they supposed to meet federal code? Yes. Do they? No. Never take it for granted. That's what I always say. Never, ever, 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 ever take it for granted that they are going to be able to accommodate you. Always check ahead of time when you travel. So, emotional support, they are an issue with Amtrak as well. Same thing. They recognize right now dogs, cats, and rabbits. Amtrak, I was on their website. That's what they will allow for emotional support animals. So Amtrak is one of those that we can look at. Also, you could file. If we were going to file suit, we could look at both the ADA and the Department of Transportation. Department of Transportation has specific guidelines around rail. Sometimes is it easier to file a complaint directly with an agency rather than going the ADA route? Yes. especially if you can do it internally, it saves a step in the process. You file with the DOJ, who will then contact the DOT, go directly to the DOT. If you can, bypass them. So, other public transportation or metros. Man. So remember, AKA funded by taxpayer dollars, are required to be accessible. That includes subway, trains, metro systems. I have not, anybody been on the new system up in Minneapolis yet? I have not. Is it really great? Have you been on? No, I thought you were nodding. Yeah. Tim was up there, Tim Sheehan, he said it's fantastic. Their whole underground, their rail system, he said it's just fantastic. State of the art, it better be up to ADA code. Are all of them up to ADA? Worst one I hate is the L line in Chicago. They still do not have all of the stations accessible. Man. Oh, and then what if you get there and the elevator's broke? So when I was just out at DC at Nickel, I'm staying at the Marriott. How many of you have been out to DC before for Nickel? You know where the Marriott Metro, that's where for the Metro line, they were redoing the concrete in front of the elevator. So the next Metro line for me, if I was going to take the Metro, which we were going up on the hill that day, I did not realize I wound up taking a taxi. I would have had to go 4.5 blocks down to the next Metro station. Here's the thing, is the elevator always where the main entrance is? No. Hardly ever. When I was out in Seattle, no. Accessible entrance all the way around the backside. So you had to go 1.5 blocks around to find the elevator. Metro's the same way. Some of them, I guess the one now with the new one in Minneapolis is the main entrance, they have the elevators there. Otherwise, it's like play that game. Let's find out where the accessible entrance is. So, always keep that in mind. We have so much that is going toward public transportation. And I always say, I will use public transportation every chance that I get. One, to try out if it's accessible. Even bus systems. All of our public bus systems are required now under the ADA to be fully accessible. You can get where you're going a lot quicker using public transportation. How about shuttle buses? How about hotel shuttle buses? Rental car shuttle buses. Are they required to have an accessible one? Yes. Do they? Even to this day? Oh, man. I always call ahead of time. I make it a major point. So, when we look at train travel, Title II, it's all about the ADA applies to Amtrak and other ones. So it prohibits public entities, if you remember, including state and local governments, from discriminating against qualified individuals with a disability, excluding them from services or activities due to their disability. Programs and services. So, Amtrak and other public transportation get federal funding. Contact the DOT, contact the DOJ. Do not be afraid to file suit against them. They will listen. That's how we make change. That's how we advocate. I have no problem. A lot of times they will listen. I was just, during our Whistler meetings, I was staying in the motel and I pointed out to the guy when he lowered my bed that the mirror was not at the height for the ADA. And I said, so not only did he change my mirror the next day, he went out and changed all of the accessible rooms. And they had just had a major refurbishing too and didn't fix them. But simple thing, all I had to do is let him know. He's got like, wow, we got 4 rooms that are supposed to be accessible. It even left me a note letting me know that he did that and asked me to write a review for him, which I was happy to do. So, remember, if you're going to file suit, and I encourage you to, know who to file suit with. All right.
I have a question, Kyle,
Yes.
for a change. Sorry. I just was wondering, going back to the accessible, the tie downs and only one wheelchair accessible space on a train car, wouldn't shouldn't that be following like the companion seating
Oh, yeah.
requirements like that? Or the percentage of seats need to be accessible kind of law?
Usually even if you look at buses now, buses the size with Greyhound, depending on how many tie-downs they're supposed to have, depends on the size of the bus. But the standard Greyhound is supposed to have 3 to 4. So 3 to 4, and a lot of them will have the flip-up seating now. So they will require that. So at least 3 seats in a Greyhound bus. Why Amtrak wouldn't have to follow the same guidelines? I don't know. I would think that if you had an Amtrak rail car, standard one would have to have 3 tie-down areas as well. But a lot of times, I don't know.
There's 3 tie-downs and 3 cars.
Got a question over here, Laura.
I was gonna say, I have a train trip, Portland to Minneapolis coming up in a few weeks, so now I'm totally gonna be checking that out on Amtrak.
Absolutely, do it.
I
Check
wish
it
I
out.
could get the accessible sleeper car though, I bet it's bigger.
Oh, they are. I love it. And it was great. Yeah, that was going out west over one night, but man, it was great. I'm like, this is cool. Plenty of room. They had to have 48-inch clear space for turnaround. I did. It's an oversized sleeper car. It was really great. I loved it. Yes.
Just to follow up and confirm with placing complaints, you had said Department of Justice, the ADA, and the DOT.
So
Were those
DOT
the 3?
file it. So if you want to file an ADA complaint, that would be with the Department of Justice. They're over on Title II. But you can file a complaint directly with the Department of Transportation as well. So it's like, what is it? The DOT, you file a complaint with the DOT under Title II if it has to do with transportation. Let me take that. But you can also file with the DOJ. So you could file with both, actually. You could file a suit with both the Department of Justice and the Department of Transportation. And if they're getting federal funding, with the Rehab Act as well. Hit them with all 3, why not? Bigger the better. But here's the thing, rental cars, ooh. Can you get an accessible rental car? Yes. A van, that is, boy. Now some of them have them. I don't know of any that have one of the things that I would always want with a van would be a swivel seat, so I can transfer into the driver's seat. I know where they will remove the driver's seat where they have the tie-down thing, but I don't have the little hook in the front of my wheelchair, so I don't drive from it, so I would get a rental car. Can I get a rental car with hand controls? Yes, I can. I just have to give them, depending, 48 to 72 hours notice. I've done that. I've gotten lucky a couple times. Man, one time it was really nice, Impala SS. So what else did I get? Oh, Challenger, Dodge Challenger, like that too, man. So that was the one they put the hand control in. I wasn't picking it. They had to give it to me at the same price. I can break my wheelchair down. I can throw it into the car. So the only thing they do is they don't use permanent hand controls. They use the ones that they strap around the steering column. So I always hope that they're really good hand controls and they're properly equipped. Knowing that for whatever reason, that if they fail and I'm killed, my wife's going to get a lot of money. So otherwise, no. I would hope that they didn't fail. But rental cars, accessible vans, call ahead. Larger ones, yes. We'll have an accessible van as well, a lift-equipped van that you can get. I know a couple of them. Hertz in Minneapolis. For me, I would have to go to Minneapolis if I wanted to get. Or I would have them bring one to the Hertz in Eau Claire, I think would be the closest. But a lot of times they will want you to go pick it up from the nearest rental place. So, yeah, good luck with that. Now, the one thing that I always love is the shuttle buses. Man, I was out in Seattle, so they're like, shuttle bus, want to go get my rental car? We don't have an accessible shuttle bus. How do you expect me to go get my car? Well, you're going to have to take a taxi. And I'm like, who's going to pay for it? Well, you're going to have to. No, I'm not. So I went around and around with this Hertz agent. I'm like, no, I'm not. Finally, I'm like, I want to talk to your manager. You know, I don't know where they are. I don't care where they are. I'm waiting, okay? I got plenty of time to check in, all right? I want to talk to your manager. The manager came, and the manager, believe it or not, had a taxi voucher behind, pulled out a little drawer, and so like, okay, yeah, okay, here, we got a taxi voucher thing for you. Yeah. So you were going to hold out on that taxi voucher till the last minute, weren't you? You were going to make me pay to go down to get my rental car. No way. How about hotels and motels? Are they required to? Do they? Smaller airports, smaller towns? No. Not a chance. Are they supposed to? Even if they, under ADA, if they have one shuttle bus, if it's a hotel and you operate just one shuttle bus, that shuttle bus is supposed to be lift equipped. Is it? In most cases, no. I've had situations where they had one out in Los Angeles. I had to wait a half hour because it wasn't out on the road. One of the drivers had to stop, get it out of the shop, and they're making me feel like I'm just this, you know, the driver's got to get a stop, get the lift equipped one. I don't care. You know, you're required to do it. Don't give me an attitude. But no, not all of them have it. This is where I believe individuals with disabilities and myself need to get a little bit militant. I need to start filing suits against the hotels, major hotels, rental car agencies that have shuttle buses that they operate going to and from hotels. They need to be lift equipped. If they're not, even if you have one, that one it better be. But you need to have at least one in your fleet. How about accessible cabs? Always in the major cities? I'm impressed now. We talk about Uber. That's another one when it comes to public transportation. Uber, when it comes to individuals with disabilities, not so friendly. I'm finding out otherwise. Do you know that they have 50 lift-equipped vans that Uber has put out in Washington, D.C. that they have out on the road? So we were pulled up the Uber app and it comes up with WAVE, which stands for Wheelchair Accessible Vehicle. So know that, but only in a lot of your major cities. Well, and Uber owns them. Uber just puts them out on the road, the people drive them. Lyft, another one, but they're only doing it in major cities. Do we have Uber in Eau Claire? Do you think there's any Uber driver in Eau Claire that has a lift-equipped vehicle? No. So think about it. But I really hate the fact that we're almost 30 years post-ADA, and the number of little shuttle buses for the hotels, motels, and other places that still aren't lift-equipped.
I was going to say, I've even been traveling with people doing Ubers. Sure. I've even had times traveling with people and service animals and Ubers where there's been an Uber driver that's pulled up and then pulled away. Several times, actually, in this area, in the Milwaukee area, and in Texas and a couple other areas. But yeah.
Thank you. I have heard that complaint against Uber and Lyft all the time. Individuals who have a service animal, are they invited? So Uber is just inviting so many lawsuits. But it's going to shift, it's going to change the industry. Anytime we see something like that, a new industry like this spring up, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while to file suits against them. For them, I hate to say it, but that's the way it usually happens. You have to go the way of lawsuits. All right. So, when driving, the question is where to stay. So, we're almost 30 years past the ADA. One of the things I always say, read the reviews. I write reviews. I really do. When it comes to the accessible room, I will write a review. It sucked, or it was great. Why was it great? What do you think my biggest complaint is with hotel motel rooms? Showers, got it, and bed height, got that one. My major one that I hate the most is the door is 20 pounds. Oh, you have to tell them all the time. I was just staying at the Holiday Inn. It's like, so I'm usually prepared, hit the key, open the door. I'm really ready to jam through. It's like the door just swung open by itself. And it almost scared me. I was like, I am not used to this. I am used to having to fight with the door and make sure that my suitcase does not fall off my lap while I'm fighting with the door. Yes, I love the shower. I want to bring in the person that designed the shower and say, all right, put down the little seat at the end of the tub. Now sit there. I want you to reach some freaking hand controls up there, don't you? All right? You know, are you a Stretch Armstrong? No. Who thought of that? And my other rule to housekeeping is you must always take and lower the shower head when you're cleaning to its lowest height. Any able-bodied person that wants it up higher, they can come up and they can lift it up. Where do you think I find it? All the time. And then I have to call the front desk and say, would you have somebody come down and lower down the shower head? Why not just make it a rule for housekeeping? If it's an accessible rule, when you're cleaning every morning, lower it down. Little tips like that. I leave those kind of reviews for hotels and motels. I am trying to change them. It is an uphill battle, I know, but I'm sure over time I can. Read the reviews. Check. There's some good ones. I know that Comfort Inn, the whole thing by Clarion, were building all brand new. And building all brand new and being ADA compliant, they actually met with disability groups and said, how can we make sure that our motels are more inviting for people with disabilities, all disabilities? Whether you're hearing impaired, visually impaired, mobility, we don't care. We want to make our hotels more inviting. It was the whole Clarion, Comfort Inn, Sleep Inns, those kind of ones. I have a tendency to steer toward those, believe it or not, when I travel. Holiday Inn Express now, the new Holiday Inn Express, the newer the better. That's my tip. The newer. If you're going to call to stay there, ask them, when did you build it? You know, if you want to know, is it really going to be accessible? Of course, we know with hotels and motels, what was the big thing they didn't want to put in?
Lift for the
Pool lifts, absolutely. We had to fight them on that. They're still doing a lot of ADA, a lot of drive-by ADAs, which are giving us a bad name. But the main thing they're hitting them with is pool lifts. They don't have a pool lift. And it has to be an operating pool lift, too. We were we went to the ADA training. And Todd, who was there, figured out how to work it, but the pool lift wasn't turned on. And the little breaker had been flipped. So he flipped that in the pool lift. Would somebody know that? It was on like the back side of the pool lift way down below. Otherwise, you would have gone there, pool lift wasn't working. You want to get in the hot tub? Sorry, pool lift isn't working. So no, I always tell people, look at the reviews and post a review. If you've been at some place that's been horrible, post a review. Encourage people to. That's how we find out. So, smaller hotels, remember, have a tendency to have a limited number of accessible rooms. They're required, God, I should remember this, how many rooms it is, an accessible room per every, one for every 15, one for every 20. God, I should know that. Anybody with ADA remember that stat? 1 in 25? Yeah. Parking, I know, is 1 in 25. I think you might be right. 1 in 20 or 1 in 25. So, but if they can't, do they have to make the room accessible? One of the things they can do, take the door off the bathroom. I don't know how many times I've done that. Now, after 30 years, my right shoulder shot, lower the bed. I know the guy came in the room when I was at the Holiday Inn in La Crosse, and I had to train him. He's like looking at us like, two guys are like, what are we going to do? I'm like, look, fold the bedding up, each corner, fold it up, nice square. Let's lift that up, set that on the chair. Take the top mattress, flip that up, okay? Take the 2 box springs, flip those up. See, now you can just pull the frame out, set everything back down in the box spring. Oh, we're good to go. See, that only took 5 minutes, didn't it? They're in, they're out. So sometimes, and I learned that, believe it or not, when I was out at April last time. Where was that? In Reno? And the housekeeping woman came in when the two maintenance guys were trying to figure out how to lower the bed, and she was like commanding sergeant. She took them she took them through it in 5 minutes. They were done. And I'm like, that is cool. I just learned something from her. It's like a great little tip, because I asked the bed to be lowered all the time. What in the world decided them at some point that they have to put all the beds at this height? I do not know. No, it's not. You can ask them, a lot of them, some of the nicer hotels now have beds that raise and lower. I was out in Seattle one, they had the drapes that open and closed. They had a remote control for that on the bed. I'm like, this is cool. So, all right, how about Parks and Recreation? Now here are some of the things we got to remember. It's great to go to the Access Board, which will tell you. So under ADA, our federal parks must be accessible. We need to advocate if there's times, don't be afraid to file suit. It would be under Title II of the ADA. But we can look ahead. I was looking on their website, and it is, for recreation guys, our federal parks, telling you where the trails are accessible, where they're not. Let's face it, they can't all be accessible. So when we look at it, even here's their right from the National Park Service. We strive to make our national parks universally accessible. However, many buildings are century-old and accessibility is not always ideal. There is the historic exemption. We know there is the one beautiful lodge out at Glacier National Park, not accessible. It was built in the late 1800s. There's no way for them to, I don't even know. They're looking at how to fix it. Ramps, other things. But Yellowstone has made great improvements in making many of their trails accessible. And they will have guides for accessibility. They will show you what trails are accessible, which ones are not. But I mean, you can't expect to go to Glacier and say, I want to go on all the trails. No. You know, what are you going to have, a lift? Maybe if they had somebody that was like, slung me on their back or something like that. You had a comment? You know, hike me up the trails? Otherwise, no.
I was in Door County 2 years ago, and in Peninsula State Park there's a fire tower, which is pretty famous, and they were tearing it down because it was not accessible. And then somebody told me that they were going to rebuild the tower and then put video up at the top to make it as an accessibility accommodation.
You can't go up on the tower and see, but you can have a little video screen down there. I will never forget in Rice Lake, they had the one tree house that they built the most amazing ramp I have ever seen to the top of this tree house. That was like, I don't know how many levels going back and forth. Had to have been a 150-foot ramp.
Was that on Highway Double S?
Yes.
Yes.
You remember the one,
I know,
yeah.
the pumpkin patch area.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine going by there, but they had kids, they had scout kids that use wheelchairs. They're like, we're going to build this ramp. It's like, cool. Yeah. But always plan your trip. Easiest thing to do. Go to the National Park Service website. They have a lot of really cool things. They can show you where the lodgings are. So, FYI, concessions at national parks, privately owned lodging facilities, must comply under Title III with the ADA. Public accommodations. National Park Service has cracked down on what they call concessions. So all of those that provide any kind of good or services in our national parks now must be compliant under, and the National Park Service is cracking down.
I was at now I'm trying to remember where it was. It was like one of the gift shops, and they had a very inaccessible ramp, and their liability release was a large sign that just said this ramp is not ADA compliant. I took a picture. I thought, wow, that's nice. I'll have to think back on what park that was.
I actually went to Mount Rushmore when they had renovated all of it. So it was very cool. They used to have a lot of issues with accessibility, but yeah, it was really nice. So, what about Crazy Horse? Does Crazy Horse Monument, does that have to be their visiting area and stuff? Does that have to be ADA accessible? Cindy's shaking her head no. Why not? Privately funded? Yes. Yes. Native Americans? Exemption under ADA? Yes.
The St. Louis Arch is not accessible, that's a federal park,
No, isn't that something?
but they redid the whole museum, it's really beautiful, but yeah, they couldn't make that.
I went up in that thing years ago before I was injured, and so I cannot imagine going up. You get in those little egg pod things that crank and go crazy on their way up. Yeah. I imagine how could somebody with a disability even get into that thing? So, how about cruise ships? Yes, cruise ships do fall under the ADA. Believe it or not, it was a 9-0 unanimous court decision that said if you dock at U.S. ports, cruise lines, you will be accessible under ADA. So, even though they are fine of flying a foreign flag and they are not originating in the U.S., they must be ADA compliant. Have cruise ships had issues with ADA? Yes, they have. A number of them. Most cruise ships now are doing a lot better job. Read the reviews, though. I don't know, with some of the cruise ship stories from hell, I don't know if I would want to go on a cruise ship or not, 7 days, man. But do they have to have accessible bathrooms? Yes. Do they have to have accessible suites? Yes. Probably the same for hotels and motel guidelines for the number required. Must all of their areas be accessible? Yes. Here's the thing, they're not. They might have like a pool deck or something like that they don't have a lift or an elevator to. I've heard that's one of the biggest things. It'll be like having a viewing area where it's only 5 or 6 steps up, but not accessible at all. So they still have issues when it comes to cruise lines. It's taken a lot of litigation, though, a lot of lawsuits against cruise ships. But the only problem is when you get on that cruise ship, you're going to a foreign country, what's the accessibility standards? So look at service animals, emotional support animals. I know I want to wrap this up quickly. When it comes to cruise ships, a lot of them have their guidelines. They must comply with the ADA. But once again, vaccination comes into play because you're traveling to foreign countries when you're aboard a cruise ship. You're going into foreign waters. Need to make sure you have all of those vaccination, immunization records, those kind of things for your animal. But it's important to note that cruise lines will not allow emotional support therapy animals or companion animals or pets on board. I saw that for some of them. They are not even recognizing emotional support animals. Have they been filed suit? Have individuals filed suit against them? Yes. They're even worse than the airlines. They're saying no. There are pet-friendly cruises, and there are some that do not allow animals on board. Call ahead of time, find out. But what if it's a service animal and they say, no, we don't allow pets on board? I'm sorry, it's my service animal. Under the ADA, you're required to let me on board with my service animal. I don't care what your policy is. Bottom line. So when we're traveling internationally, you don't know what the accessibility standards are. So outside Canada, wonderful accessibility. How many people have traveled in Canada? Found accessibility good? Yes. I love their access. They have national accessibility standards. EU, European Union, as every country is required to have accessibility standards, but they vary. There's ones that are the bare minimum, I mean the bare minimum, and there's others that do a wonderful job. England is really good. Germany, Sweden, not so good. Sweden is one of the ones that will do the bare minimum. I was looking at some of the reviews for international travel. Sweden and Denmark were getting horrible reviews. Italy, great. You have to remember, my wife wants to go to Italy, see all the historic sites, museums, you know. I'm like, do you know how many of those are going to be accessible? How about we go to England, okay? National Museum, or the World Museum of History, yes, that's where I want to go, and it is accessible. I've known people that have gone there. I've read the reviews. They are fully accessible. God, even in London, I mean, Ireland, the number of accessible taxis and stuff, a lot of theirs, when it comes to public transportation, far exceeds what we have in the United States. Public transportation in some European countries, good. Do your homework. Plan like crazy if you're going to be traveling internationally. No. Accessibility really good in Mexico? Depends on where you go. Staying at the resort, great. The resort's great. It's wonderful. It's accessible. They got a pool lift. But you get outside the little resort complex, curb cuts? No, I found that out. There was not a curb cut to be found. So did a lot of curb hopping for those 4 days, let me tell you. I found out that outside of this little resort complex, it really sucked. And I'm like, geez. So know that, where you're going. So the majority of countries have the standards, but these are just some that I found in there, was looking at them. They have some great websites out there when it comes to traveling internationally for people with disabilities. Really good ones. I know a woman I ran into out at Nickel, she was telling me they booked this trip through Italy, and they have these little attachment things for the front of your wheelchair, has like a little handlebar thing on. It's not like the ones that we have that stick way out, they're really compact. She's like, they will take you up all the little cobblestone streets and all over the places, seeing all the little bistros and stuff like that, and they're really cheap. She's like, ran into a friend of theirs over in Italy, was like, come on over. She's like, I've got all kinds of reservations about what accessibility is going to be like. He's like, don't worry. She's like, I came back, I'm like, this is so cool. I was able to go up to the top, but other places, no. I wonder, I never even looked, is the Eiffel Tower, do they have an elevator that goes all the way to the top? Huh? Yeah? Okay. Part of the way? France, they're like in the middle. But Germany is really great. High marks on the European Union. Ireland, England. So Ireland, the one thing I loved about going to Ireland was, if it wasn't accessible, the people were so friendly. It was nothing for 2-3 guys to come out and grab you and just lift you up and take you in the pub. You're like, no questions asked. And, they're just like, oh, he needs to get in here. Okay, come on, grab him, boys. And next thing you know, you're inside. You're like, what the hell happened? It's like, I'm here. Just such a friendly country. Even, a lot of places, I didn't know it. A lot of the older little places had a little ramp that they could pull out from out behind the door. But yeah, it was cool. So one of the friendliest places I've ever been. So 5 minutes. Anybody have stories to share? Your travels with friends? Your horror stories? Many? So yes. So what's it like for somebody who's traveling using sign language?
I just recently, last year, had a cochlear implant put in, and I wasn't sure about going through the security check with a cochlear implant, the scan. So I did take off the receiver, and it freaked them out, the TSA people. They didn't really know what to do with it. So, I had let them know all was fine. I didn't want to go through it and then have it damaged, so I explained that's why I took it out. But I had found out that they changed the scanner to a low frequency, or if I change the cochlear implant to a low frequency, then go through the scanner, it will not do any damage to it.
Ah,
And a lot of the reservations, online, if you do it that way, you check, I have a hearing loss. And then when I would arrive, like I was flying out of Milwaukee, honestly, regardless of anywhere that you go, they meet you at the gate with a wheelchair, even though you've just checked that you have a hearing loss.
oh.
Jennifer's saying that was me as well. Yep. But there was one situation. I have a dear friend. They are deaf blind, and they are from England. He was able to see and hear prior to when he was younger, but later lost his hearing and vision. And he traveled often. So he was very familiar with what to do, how it went. But now, in his older years, that he is deaf blind, he had, made sure to plan ahead. He had somebody that was going to meet him at the gate. And once he was on the plane, he could function just fine, do it himself. And so last year, he was taking a flight, but they rejected him and said that he could not fly because he required an attendant or an assistant. And he had his passport that documented all of his experience traveling, but the company was afraid that if something were to happen, how would we communicate with you? Well, common sense, I guess, but it was just amazing that they had rejected him. They didn't allow him to fly.
Wow.
So, he did have a lawsuit against them. The airline apologized to him, and since that time, he has been able to travel fine, but, that's a big struggle for people who are deaf-blind. I've traveled often with individuals who are deaf-blind, and they are rejected or not allowed to fly often. Just due to many reasons, mostly not knowing how to accommodate them. Also, the deaf-blind person, they have to take some responsibility to learn a little bit more or be aware of the different traveling situations, how to get around, how to navigate. Once they do know that, things do get a little bit better, but those were some things that I've seen and experienced.
And I've known so many individuals that have problems, and it's always with that gate agent. That gate agent that just thinks that they know what's right, and then when they file the complaint with the airline comes back and said, we are so sorry that this happened. I would always want to ask the question, what did you do to train that gate agent so this never happens again? So one person who's deaf-blind does not come across that same gate agent who's going to say, nope, you can't fly today. Sorry, we just messed up your entire travel plans. So I've had some that have been cranky when it comes to wheelchairs too. I don't care. I know my rights. Educate people. Let them know what their rights are. And I always say, write reviews and file a complaint. It's the only way that we're going to change things. Write reviews so that when I go to read those reviews, and I'm going to be staying somewhere, boy, this Comfort Inn has got wonderful reviews for accessibility. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for.
All right, any other questions? All I have to say is just remember to be very nice. The
Wow.
nicer you are for travel,
Yes.
even when you're advocating for yourself, the nicer you are, the further you'll get.
If you come at them with an attitude, they're going to come back at you with an attitude. Remember.
That's regardless of you have a disability or not.
Right, yes. Especially traveling nowadays, yes. We have more people flying, less planes, and people are overall getting far crankier. They're doing research on that, yes.
All right, well, thank you very much, Kyle. Oh,
Oh.
Sorry, can I add one more thing here?
you bet.
So one time I was flying with a group of deaf individuals, and they were going to a bowling tournament. And there was about 50 deaf individuals that were going in this, and each deaf individual had on average 4 bowling balls, because this was a bowling tournament, right? So what had happened was they had made an announcement, and there was a person in the front that was a larger individual, and the announcement was made that it was overweight capacity, so we had to get rid of some things. So of course, the deaf person saw the bigger individual, and they said, oh, we should put that person out. And they said, no, 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 we shouldn't do that. It's actually your bowling balls that are taking up the weight, not the individuals. So the balls actually need to be removed, not the people themselves. And I just couldn't believe that that was happening, that conversation. And the person said, not my balls, I'm not getting rid of those. I'm going to the bowling tournament. So it was just this funny communication bit, but there's several other people that volunteered then to get off the plane and wait for the next one because of that situation, but it was rather funny.
You know, I'll leave you with one thought. If you're not in a hurry and they're going to bump you to the next flight, which might be like an hour and a half or something, that hour and a half wait might be worth a ton of gold to you. 'Cause
And
the
you
number
can
of miles
negotiate.
and other,
And you can negotiate that price. Don't ever, ever take the lowest price that they're offering
Yeah.
you for the gift card or the... Right, some people will run out, oh, $250, yeah, I'll take it. No, because they can go way higher than that. Just
Oh.
wait it out. You might lose because someone else is going to fall for it, but in the end, wait it out.
Yeah. I know a guy that hit him for 500 and I couldn't believe it. And other passengers were like, damn, I should have taken the deal. So, thank you and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, Kyle.